Welcome boys and girls, Christine here with a discussion about Drycha in Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires and the sheer absurdity of her campaign. Now Wood Elves are a very strong race, but I do think Drycha, from the perspective of playing a faster paced campaign as opposed to waiting on your ass playing the Intern Button Simulator for 40, 60 plus turns, Drycha is a really solid campaign for Wood Elves. Unless your goal is to actually heal all the forests, that's a different discussion. I do find playing a long Wood Elf campaign to be fairly tedious. In general, Wood Elf campaigns, even Orion especially, can feel very slow paced. You're fairly safe, fairly secure, you have very little to risk, and that is not an especially great dynamic to be dealing with. Drycha is all about aggression. And surprisingly, Wood Elves actually do thrive on it, but they have a lot of limitations. Recruitment limitations, tier limitations, all that kind of stuff that just require them to sit on their ass and play the Intern Button Simulator. That is not Drycha at all. So let's go over the benefits and problems that she does have in her campaign. So first off, you do start with 1 amber. This is a fairly substantial benefit because it gives you access to one of these special research that you do have only with amber. There are a lot of things that are great over here. One of them that you may want to go for is Wisdom of the Pine, or you could go for Wisdom of the Poplar for growth. There are all kinds of significant benefits to go over here, like fire resistance for Dryad, Treekin, and Treeman units, because fire is actually one of their vulnerabilities, diplomatic relations with all factions, all these kind of things. My personal perspective, construction time by 25% is a heck of a benefit, and so is 15% upkeep for Dryads, Treekin, and Treeman units. The fact that you do get this, and from the very beginning, as a kind of payoff because you don't start with the Oak of Ages, is a pretty substantial benefit. You might think missing out on the Oak of Ages from the beginning is a downside. It isn't really necessarily so, because yes, the Oak does give you a lot of benefits, but again, it's that Intern Button Simulator type situation for them. So in the long term, yes, Orion in particular will trounce Drycha in terms of campaign potential, but having a head start is pretty significant. Any good player will be able to achieve more and faster with Drycha than Orion and Durfu. You can run in circles around them. Anyone want to play a Wood Elf Civil War campaign? Let me tell you, it ain't Orion who's winning that situation, because limitations on recruitment. Speaking about limitations on recruitment, you do have those in Drycha's campaign. Specifically, you're missing out on some of the higher end units of the Wood Elves. Well, rather specifically, you're missing out on Way Watchers, if you want to talk about that dynamic. That's the one unit that does hurt you quite a bit because they are a good range units, but you do have Glade Guard, you do have Deepwood Scouts. You can argue that I have some melee debuffs for elf units. You're missing some of the roster, you've got melee debuffs, but it doesn't quite matter. Because Deepwood Scouts, Glade Guard are still fairly strong, and they get an extra leadership benefit with Drycha. On top of that, there is a way to nullify the effect of Glamour, not just for one army, her own, but 2 armies in this campaign. And with Wood Elves, given limitations on how many recruitment slots you have in the forests and all that, it doesn't matter. So it might not be the best campaign from scalability standpoint, but it is a really good campaign from getting your feet off the ground running for a number of reasons. So you get that upkeep benefit, you get that construction time benefit for Amber. You're looking at minus 25% upkeep benefit for Forest Spirit units, and we're all about the Forest Spirit units. On top of that, the Gryphon Wood starts as a tier 2, not a tier 3. A tier 2, not a tier 1 settlement. And you can also get the tribal stones at that tier, so you can start recruiting Malevolent Treekin. If that sounds pretty ridiculous, it's because it freaking is on a lot of different levels in this campaign. So this is kind of what you'd want to build on turn 1 in Drycha's campaign. Get movement range. This campaign specifically is being played on legendary normal difficulty. I've chosen normal because it's either a situation where people complain because I use auto-resolve mods to kind of simulate that, also because the CA is going to make a bunch of changes. Either way, Drycha's other benefit in her campaign beyond the Gryphon Wood is her starting province that she can conquer, starting with more time. Because these provinces, if we look at them and if we consider the implications of these provinces, well, we can look at having 15 growth for all provinces that we can start getting very quickly in this campaign, provided we are willing to sacrifice in a couple of other ways, like maybe not making a barracks and instead getting this specific structure. This benefit and more time is pretty substantial, and yes, you will be running in circles around Ostermark and the Minor Skaven faction that you do start at war with. Those are pretty big benefits. Furthermore, Drycha has recruitment on the move. She can recruit Dryads on the move. She can recruit a bunch of different units over here to kind of make up for the units she's missing out from the regular Wood Elf roster. The benefit here is really from an early game standpoint because you're not really going to use these units long term, but early on, having that flexibility of just being able to recruit units on the move and not even needing a second army in your initial settlement is pretty substantial. Now, something else of a benefit with Drycha is due to the Ostermark as well as Talabayim and the geography of how things work over here. She does have the Gryphon Wood being surrounded by all kinds of settlements that she can take or raise, but taking them gives you growth in all adjacent provinces and reduces construction costs by minus 5% for each of these through the foraging groves. This, crucially, does affect the Gryphon Wood. And that's a pretty big deal because one of the big limiting factors for Wood Elves is actually getting those surplus points because it's pretty slow by default. Sure, their main settlement structure just constructs for cash, but getting that growth is a pretty big deal. Also, you do have more of these forests around the Gryphon Wood than most other locations. Yes, there are issues, specifically like the Oak of Ages situation, but that is absolutely something you can manage with somewhat relative ease. Well, kind of, because, you know, fighting Orion may seem like a joke most of the time until it no longer is. But to be clear, Drycha absolutely can and will win this kind of battle situation in her campaign without too much of a fuss. Wood Elves, the way they recruit their stuff is questionable in the best of times, mostly. So you can obviously use the situation over here to your advantage. And while Orion may shove a bunch of stacks up your throat, let's just say a bunch of Dryads and Shuriken will make short work of that. And while you can't recruit units in the Oak of Ages when you teleport to it, you can recruit an Ancient Treeman. Malevolent Ancient Treeman specifically, which is just the regular one, but better, because of course it is. That's just how Drycha rolls. If you got a problem with that, well, take it up with the angry lady in the forest. She's not gonna make your life pretty. Of course, we do also have to consider the kind of vision you do gain in various campaigns over here because of a particular research that gives you vision with these forests, and you can take advantage of that to just declare war on a bunch of factions and get a lot of money. Though that's available in every Wood Elf. But actually being able to put that money to good use because of her growth benefit and construction cost benefit is pretty substantial. Furthermore, even though you do wipe out Orion and really you may want to conquer all of Athaloran yourself, you can get Durfu, which is its own significant benefit as well in a campaign. She also has a legendary hero exclusive to her with Coadil. That is pretty good, pretty solid. He's not necessarily the best, though you do have some pretty nice solid spells. Things like Colossal Darkness. You look at damage to combatant, strong versus character. This is what makes Drycha scary. See, Wood Elves themselves can feel very painful to deal with by default, but then you add in Drycha's particular brand of leadership bullshit in her campaign that makes things just that much scarier. It's not her innate magic or the amber or the malevolent. No, it's her special skill line that makes her a damn pain in the neck. There are a few things that I do fear in the campaign. Keep in mind, for instance, that Drycha does have that 20% ward save skill for tree can units, which, yes, malevolent tree men also have. But when we look at her special skill line, we get the ability of summoning a unit of malevolent dryads in a battle. We get the ability of reducing ammunition and making a couple of ranged units in a battle useless. Keeping in mind how powerful Wood Elves already are in range battle. Having a significant benefit to ambushing, causing terror when ambushing in forests. And if we look at this, we can prevent the movement of a target. That's pretty nasty. But that's not even necessarily the nastiest. You do get a branch rate recruitment benefit, which are replenishment benefit. You can reduce enemy leadership for Elven units and increase the leadership for Dryads, Treekin, and Treemen. And again, reminder, your Dryads, Treemen, Treekin are pretty damn not nasty to begin with. But then we also consider the passive ability over here. This is pretty nasty, and this is what is so fucking terrifying with Drycha. You will not win a melee fight with Drycha. It doesn't matter who you are. There's very few armies in the game that just go up in a melee fight with Drycha and win. Chaos Warriors with halberds, Chosen with halberds, sure. Those can win. Anti-large, all that kind of stuff. But even then, it is a fight. Let's be very clear on that. Ranged units, you're not going to be able to do enough damage. You might outmaneuver the enemy, all that. But one of the things you might think, oh, magic. Well, that's kind of the problem with Drycha, because she has this item that's very easy for her to get, and you want to get it. This one increases the cooldown of abilities by plus 15 seconds. Think what 15 seconds means in a battle, right? Enabled of casting infinite range. It doesn't matter where on the battlefield you are. This item, I'm gonna say it plainly, is pure bullshit. It makes dealing with Drycha beyond everything else she has complete bananas. Just the fact she has a legendary hero, the fact she can get Durfu. Pretty sure you can also abuse the fact that you can wipe out Orion to ensure that Durfu gets Ariel, and you might be able to get Ariel in a confederation with that. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. But just the fact that she shuts down spellcasters, has an army that's really scary to deal with, really scary to approach. It's not just Treekin, though. Keep that in mind. She can use Weight Watchers, Greatly Guard. She'll fight you in ranged and win in ranged. She's stronger than you, more durable than you, outranges you most of the time. Few range armies can beat her. Artillery? Well, good luck with using artillery when she's summoning malevolent dryads up your artillery. It makes things pretty painful to deal with. She's actually very solid. She's not the fastest unit, and she's certainly not the strongest. Drycha herself in a battle is not really going to do that much damage. Drycha's support capabilities in a battle are some of the scariest things that you may deal with. Again, I've played many campaigns and many thousands of hours in Warhammer 3. There are a few enemies that I encountered that are genuinely terrifying. Sometimes you might encounter Archeon, with a Regiment's Renown stack. You might encounter an in-game Chaos Dwarf army, Grimgore, because of course. But on one of the more consistent levels, unless you're just abusing auto-resolve, because that's one of the keys to defeating Wood Elves, by the way. You don't fight them manually because it's going to be a pain in the neck. You just bring more armies than them, because even on Legendary, you can recruit more stuff than them. And you also eliminate their recruitment because you can just sneak up on their trees and wipe them out. Mind you, in the hands of a player, Wood Elf settlements are damn near impregnable because 1, a player is probably going to force a manual battle. 2, the defensive layout of those Wood Elven settlements are the best in the game. And 3, it's actually very easy to get garrison buildings if you're afraid you're going to be attacked in them. Good luck with that. Funnily enough, the most vulnerable settlement the Wood Elves have is actually the Oak of Ages. I'm not joking on that one. But keep in mind the kind of garrison that the Oak itself does have, and that proposition becomes a bit dicier, doesn't it? So a bit of ridiculousness here and there on many levels in her campaign. When added together as a package, you get a highly aggressive, highly capable legendary lord whose only vulnerability is the fact she's lacking artillery, which is a vulnerability all Wood Elves have. Though interestingly enough, when we do consider the fact, like, yes, the dwarves may not especially like you if you're playing Drycha, but you want to wipe out Vlad and sell that to Ungrim, so you make an ally, or you want to ally Ungrim to beat up Azag and just get dwarf artillery if that's a concern in your situation, you can do so. And you are capable of doing so. All these benefits combined make Drycha's campaign complete bananas. Costin here signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications.